You're going.
Some tips on making rosettes. We've made about 80 dozen here so far, and I'm in the process of finishing up, but I thought I'd run a video with some of the tips that you asked for. First of all, with the dough, make sure you don't beat it too much so that it gets foam on top. And if you do get foam on top, you need to kind of skim that off a little bit. Also with the dough, use skim milk and add a little bit of cold water to the batter when you're making it, just a tablespoon or something like that. That makes it a bit thinner, and they turn out nice and light and crispy that way. And then I use this bread loaf pan for the batter, and you see that I'm using two deep fat fryers and two double irons. And it works well with a loaf pan to put the batter in there. They fit just right in there, and that works quite well. And then you can just refill it with a measuring cup from your batter. The deep fat fryers at about 350 to 375, closer to 375. But try, if you're using double, make sure you kind of have them at an even temperature between the two. Otherwise you get out of sync. And you have to have kind of a sink involved here to get this to work right. Excuse me. You see that they're not done yet. They're a little bit light on that one. I don't mind taking a look once in a while and making sure that we're not overcooking. Sometimes you do get out of sync, and then you end up with some that are too done, and they end up on the plate in the middle of the table. And
for a while.
People, yeah, for a while. Those are the rejects. Those are the, and you watch now the dipping here. Dip it to the top of the iron, but don't get it over. And if you do, keep a knife handy so you can cut off. Otherwise, you won't be able to get them off the iron. Dip them in the sugar then afterwards. And the sugar gets a little greasy after a while, so it has to be replaced once in a while. Now this one's a little bit too done. Take a look at that. That's a little too done for me, but they're okay.
They're still
they taste good.
They don't taste burned.
They some people like them a little lighter, some a little darker anyway, so that's just fine. It's good to have help because sometimes you get behind in the dipping of the sugar or whatever it might be, and you have to have someone to move the done rosettes out of the way. We put them in piles of 6 so that it's easy to put count them as far as dozens.
It's imperative to have help.
Yeah, it's imperative to have help.
Did you want to tell her about your thing across the top of the...
Yeah. In the deep fat fryers, you don't want the irons to... if you don't have... I did this wire. I just drilled a hole in the handle of these to put it... And this is just a clothes hanger that I bent into shape. But if you don't have that, they end up like this, and then you get burnt edges. Either it's hitting the side or the bottom, and then they get get those burned spots and flat spots on them. So I use that little trick to keep them in the fat.
What you're using to take them off?
I love this, and this is something that I don't know if you can even find them anymore, but it's a cloth diaper cut in half, and it's just the right size, just the right thickness for getting them off the
one of those multiple
iron.
thickness diapers, not just a single
Right,
layer.
not just the thin diapers that you might use as a cheesecloth with some things, but it needs to be double thick, or it looks like it's a kind of doubled and sewed together so it stays together. Oftentimes I don't reuse them, I'll just throw them when I'm done. You can wash them, and like these I washed last night because we made last night and then again today. And so I did wash them overnight in hot water.
Separately.
And they work just fine today. And they sometimes if you keep them over the year though, they'll turn yellow and kind of yucky. But I've done that too. I mean, it's not that they're you know, not okay. Let's see what else. You have to keep adding the sugar so you get the fine because it gets clumpy. Otherwise, you get kind of clumps in there. I like when I'm dipping them, well, I'll wait until I take one out here, but when I'm taking them off, I put them in the sugar, and then that's okay. Then I tip them over and bang them a little bit to get the sugar down into it and so that they don't have too much sugar on them. There you see the dipping again. Get it right up to the top but not over. I should do one that goes over just to show you how that is. But if I have room here, I bang them like that to get the sugar down the bottom and then dump some out. And that helps them from getting too sugary.
Okay, I'm going to pause it so I can move.
Good.
Okay, there's. Okay.
You got it going?
Yep.
Part 2 on the tips on making rosettes. I'm going to dip in the dough again, the iron, to show you what happens when it goes over the top of the iron. You can see closer up here. I'm dipping and you get it right to the top there. But if you go over like that, go ahead, cook it. You're going to have to cut it off though with the knife. Also, I wanted to mention the setup here. I would suggest that you put cutting boards underneath the pots, and I use a Zilpat on top of those to also help protect. And that is pretty solid, and you don't worry then about you know, hurting your table or whatever you're cooking on. The other thing, you'll see plastic all around. We cover the walls, we cover the floor, we cover the table, we cover, I'd cover myself if I could, but unfortunately. But, you know, you're splattering, you know, when you're doing this, you're spreading grease all over. So you're going to have a mess. And if you look under the table, that's a little unappetizing. We just sweep it under there because it's for easy pickup when we're done. We tape this to the floor so we don't trip over it and all that. And then when we're done, we rip it up and throw the whole works away along with the crumbs and the whole bit. Okay, here's one that I have gone over the iron on. And you'll see, whoops, my wire came off or moved. Okay, you see on the top there's no way of getting that one off. This one will come off just fine, but there's no way you'll get that one off. So then I just take the knife along the edge and just slice that off, and it looks just fine after you take it off. You see that it's a little whiter on that side because I also get more dough in there, so then it needs longer to cook to do that. But so try not to go over. Sometimes you do by accident, and that's just going to happen. You'll learn. There was one other tip I was going to mention. They came off my iron.
Oh.
Now, I know. The biggest tip of all, when you start, make sure you have the irons in the grease. I use Crisco to do mine. I'm
Crisco oil.
Crisco oil for my rosettes, and I like that. Some people I know use animal lard, but I've never done that, and I know it's kind of hard to find these days. But when you're heating the oil and getting ready, make sure you have the irons in the fat. Just leave them in like that while you're heating the oil. so that they're good and hot. Well then, if you were to dip these right out of the oil, here's what will happen. They'll end up like that. The dough won't stay very well to it. Well, of course, this time it did. But and they'll probably just slide off right back into your batter. But if you heat up the thing, take a cloth like this and wipe off the irons before you dip. And that way, I'm going to do these like donuts now. I'm going to tip them over so that because they'll still be part of the reject pile that we eat. They're still good and all that, but they won't be pretty for giving away or displaying on a table or something. But they taste just as good, and yeah, we like them too. Let's see what happens with these that I didn't wipe the irons off.
They're not done yet.
They're not done yet. I keep a whisk handy to keep this mixed up. If it gets, if the rosettes kind of get so that they curve out on you, that means the batter is too thick. And you might want to add just a little bit of water, like a tablespoon of cold water to the batter to, again, keep them a little lighter and crispier, and they won't get so thick. Okay, now, sometimes they're difficult. You have to kind of push around on the corners. I use them all. I do this iron because it's easiest, quickest, easiest to pack and all that. I'm going to take this iron and put it back as soon as I fish these out. The other thing you keep handy is a utensil like that. These are going to be too done, and they were a problem from the beginning. They're going to go over in the pile over there.
Don't put them on on here till all the grease comes off. Otherwise, those
Okay. I'm going to get this iron ready again. Just put it in the, you see how she's skimming out the nubbins. You're going to get nubbins in there from what falls off the batter. And if you get too much of that, then the oil burns. And that's part of what you're going to have the smell of the oil, like you do with anything that you're deep frying. We do it here at the lake because we can leave the smell here at the lake and not where we're living. And by the time we come back, the smell is gone. But it's nice to have another place where you can do them. If it's nice enough where you can, now that one's a reject in my estimation. It'll taste fine. We'll keep it to eat. Okay, now I'm going to take these off, and then I'm going to show you about the iron that's heating up there in the oil. See how I'm pushing them off the iron? Just that breaks off these little chips that you see in your sugar and all around you. So it's a mess, there's no doubt about it. You can't do it without the mess. Now these have been heating up, so then you knock the oil off like that, and then take your cloth and just wipe them off before you dip. They'll still be hot enough to hold the batter, but not so greasy that the batter will fall off. And then once again dip them, and there you go.
Okay, I'm pausing.
Do these and
Okay, you're on.
I'm on. The other thing that you can use instead of the old diapers, cloth diapers, are the white dish towels. I have used those for years, and they work pretty well too. Sometimes you get the corners caught in the dough, so you might want to double them up, even sew them like this one is. You'll see now the sugar, how greasy it's gotten. So what we do, we add new sugar. I don't take out the old, we can, and you'll see the difference that makes as I dip one here. Now that one's in the old, this is the new sugar, and see how nicely it covers it. I still bang it down and dump it out, but now this is the old stuff, and you see how clumpy it is on there.
Oops, do that again.
You can see how clumpy it is there. Yeah. And that's why I bang those down then and dump them out, because you can't keep from the sugar getting a little greasy over time. And the packaging, we do use the, Kathy will run over and show you the boxes that we use. It's just the take-home boxes like you use, you get at a restaurant. And she cuts them off. Now, one half of them works really well for rosettes, and the other half works really well for krumkaka. So, and we make a lot of krumkaka too, so that's handy for us. She then fills those with, she kind of sorts out the, so you get a nice variety of rosettes in each dozen, and she puts a dozen in each package then. And then covers it with Ziploc bags, but not the Ziploc brand. They're the ones from the dollar store is the ones we use. They're just the right size and work well, and they're cheaper. And that works really well. And then we keep them in a tote or a cooler. And they need to be kept fairly cool. If you have a room in your house or garage that is cooler, that's a good place to keep them. But also that they're sealed enough that vermin can't get in there, of course. But they'll keep for, I'd say, about a month. If you make them too soon, like before Thanksgiving, they're not going to be good for Christmas because they get a little rancid if you don't keep them cool. If you keep them good and cool, then they probably could last for even 6 weeks. But you got to keep them good and cool. We've even we have frozen packages and taken them out, and that they keep they don't get soggy. We've even done rosettes in the summer when it's really humid, and kept them just in a cooler, and they were crispy. I wouldn't keep them for very long in the summer, but they didn't get soggy as long as you keep them in a cooler and sealed in a bag like that. Okay, I think that's probably about it. If I think of any more, I'll do another segment. Happy rosette making!